My name is Catherine Maria Reyes, and I am 73 years old. I have lived in Los Angeles for the past 50 years, raised 3 children, buried my husband 17 years ago, and built what I thought was a life of quiet dignity and security. I had no idea that my youngest daughter, Lucia, had been systematically destroying my identity for the past 2 years while I slept peacefully in the same house. The first sign was a phone call from my bank. It was a Tuesday morning in October. I was watering my kitchen plants, tomatoes and basil that I had grown from seeds, when the telephone rang. A woman's voice, professional but concerned, asked me if I had recently applied for a $50,000 line of credit. I hadn't. My heart began to race, but I remained calm. These things happen, I told myself. Identity theft, fraud, simple mistakes. But when the banker told me the application was in my name, using my social security number, my address, and a cell phone number I didn't recognize, my hands began to shake. No, I said firmly, I did not apply for any credit. Someone is using my identity. The banker, whose name was Michael, assured me the application had been flagged before approval due to unusual activity on my account. He promised to investigate immediately. He asked me to come to the branch in person to verify my identity and secure my accounts. I went to the bank the next day. It took 3 hours. There were documents I didn't recognize, credit inquiries from companies I had never heard of, a social media account opened in my name selling products on Facebook Marketplace. Someone had been methodically using my identity to open accounts, apply for credit, and conduct business. This is serious fraud, Michael told me, his professional demeanor cracking slightly. Someone very close to you, someone who knows your personal information intimately, is doing this. Usually, it's family. Family. The word hung in the air like a curse. I thought of my 3 children. Marcus, who lived in San Francisco with his family, Jennifer, who had moved to Arizona 5 years ago, and Lucia, my youngest, who lived 3 houses down from me on the same quiet street where we had raised her. Lucia had taken her father's death hardest. She had been 27 when my husband died, old enough to understand what we had lost, young enough to still believe it shouldn't have happened. She had moved back home after the funeral, saying she needed time to find herself. That time had turned into 16 years. I loved my daughter. I had always loved her. But I was also aware that something in her had broken when her father died. Something about Lucia had become different, sharp, resentful, like a piece of glass in a place where there should have been softness. I called the police to report the fraud. A detective named Sarah came to my house. She was a woman about 50 years old, with kind eyes and a voice that didn't make you feel foolish for being a victim. We sat in my living room, and I told her everything I knew about my finances, my accounts, and my children. Detective Sarah took notes. She asked questions. She asked about Lucia specifically. Does Lucia have access to your home? Yes, she lives 3 houses down and has a key. Does she know your passwords? I think she might. Over the years, I've had her help me with things online. She's tech savvy. I may have shared passwords with her. Has she had access to your important documents, birth certificate, social security card, passport? All 3 are in a safe in my closet. Lucia knows the combination. I gave it to her years ago in case of emergency. With each affirmative answer, I felt my heart sinking deeper. The detective's expression remained professional, but I could see the conclusion forming in her mind. It was Lucia. We'll need to get your account information from the bank, Detective Sarah said carefully. We'll also need you to file official fraud reports with the credit bureaus and the FTC. And, Mrs. Reyes, I need you to understand something. If this is your daughter, the next steps will be very serious. Do you want to proceed? I sat with that question for a long time. The tomato plants on my windowsill seemed suddenly very delicate, very fragile. My daughter, the child I had nurtured, cradled, sacrificed for, using my identity, stealing from me, betraying me. I need to know for certain, I said finally. Before I accuse my daughter of a crime she might not have committed, I need to know absolutely. Detective Sarah worked with the bank and credit card companies to trace the fraudulent activities. Over the next week, the picture became clear. The $50,000 line of credit that had been denied was just the beginning. There were a credit card in my name with $8,000 in charges, phone accounts opened at a mobile carrier, 3 Amazon accounts using variations of my name, medical services billed to my insurance, a UPS mailbox rented under my name at a Lucia frequented. All of it traced back to Lucia. All of it recent. When Detective Sarah presented me with the evidence, I cried. I cried not from anger, but from a kind of spiritual exhaustion. This was my child, my baby girl, the girl who had sat on my lap after her father died and asked me if everyone leaves eventually. "What do I do?" I asked. "Legally, you have options," Detective Sarah replied. "You can press criminal charges. You can also choose to confront her privately first to give her a chance to explain, to potentially repay the debt. Some families go that route. And if I don't press charges, the fraud continues? It might, especially if she doesn't believe you're serious." I thought about Lucia, about my house just 3 doors down, about the fact that she came to visit me every Sunday for dinner, about the secret she was keeping, the lies she had been living. "I need to catch her," I said suddenly. "Not in legal sense, but in the actual act. I need to see what she's doing. I need to understand why." Detective Sarah nodded as if she had expected this answer. "How would you do that?" I asked. She leaned forward. "We have undercover officers who can help with fraud cases like this. But, Mrs. Reyes, you need to understand, if you go that route, it gets complicated. We would essentially be setting a trap to catch your daughter committing fraud." "Good," I said with a steel in my voice I didn't know I possessed. "Set the trap." Over the next 2 weeks, Detective Sarah and I worked with a team of undercover officers. The plan was intricate and required perfect timing. First, we needed to create a reason for me to be gone. We would stage my death. I know how that sounds. It sounds dramatic, unrealistic, like something from a television show. But Detective Sarah explained that sometimes the only way to catch someone in the act of fraud is to remove the victim from the equation. If Lucia thought I was dead, if she thought she had unlimited access to my identity and my accounts with no chance of me interfering, she might accelerate her criminal activity. She might do something so obvious, so definitive, that the evidence would be undeniable. "This is risky," Sarah warned me. "People in our community will need to know. Your other children will need to know. Your friends will need to know. And when Lucia finds out, when the death is revealed to be false, she will feel profoundly betrayed." "She's already profoundly betraying me," I replied. "At least this way, I'll know the full extent of her crimes." So we began. First, I would make detailed plans for my funeral. I would speak to a funeral home about the arrangements. I would write a will, leaving everything to Lucia, making her the executor of my estate and giving her sole authority over my financial accounts. Everything that would make her think I was handing her the keys to a treasure she could exploit. Detective Sarah would make an anonymous 911 call reporting my death from natural causes. A doctor who was cooperating with the investigation would file a death certificate. The death would be announced to the community. But the funeral would be delayed by 2 weeks, delayed for family reasons. That 2-week window was when we hoped Lucia act. I told Marcus and Jennifer first. I met with them separately so they could process the information without Lucia noticing. Marcus, my oldest, was horrified. "You're going to fake your own death to catch your sister committing fraud?" "I need to know what she's doing," I explained, "and I need evidence so clear that a court can't refuse to see it." "Mom, this is insane," Marcus said. But after an hour of discussion, he understood. He didn't support it fully, but he understood. Jennifer was more practical. She asked questions about the legal implications, about what would happen afterward, about how Lucia would react. She helped me think through scenarios. "What if she calls someone? What if word gets out?" Jennifer asked. "Detective Sarah has thought of that," I said. "Lucia's phone has been monitored with a warrant. We'll know if she tells anyone." "And what if she doesn't commit fraud? What if this whole thing is a misunderstanding?" "Then I apologize to my daughter, and we move forward," I said. But I didn't believe that was possible. Not anymore. Too much evidence pointed to Lucia's guilt. The day before my death, I spent the evening alone in my house. I made a pot of arroz con leche, the rice pudding my mother had taught me to make. I sat on my porch and watched the sunset over the neighborhood I had lived in for half a century. I thought about how fragile trust is, how quickly it can be shattered. The next morning, I went to the hospital at 5 a.m. before it was light. I wore a hospital gown. I lay in a bed in a room on the 3rd floor. Doctors who were part of the investigation did an examination. They took blood, they did tests, and then, at 8 a.m., Detective Sarah called 911. "I'm calling to report a death. Catherine Maria Reyes, age 73, natural causes. She was admitted to the hospital last night. She passed away this morning." The police arrived. They took a report. They contacted the coroner. The death certificate was filed. By 9 a.m., the rumor was spreading through the neighborhood. By noon, it was on social media. By 1 p.m., my phone was ringing constantly. But it wasn't my phone. It was a duplicate phone that Detective Sarah had given me. The official phone, the one linked to my identity, was in police custody. I watched from a safe house, a small apartment rented by the police department, as my daughter's behavior changed. Lucia received the news from a neighbor at approximately 2:15 p.m. Within minutes, she was online. Detective Sarah, watching the monitoring equipment in her mobile surveillance unit, narrated what Lucia was doing. "She's accessing your bank accounts from her laptop," Sarah told me over the phone. "She's looking at the balance. She's checking the status of that inheritance I told her she would receive. She's—" Sarah paused. "She's smiling," Sarah said. "Your daughter is smiling while looking at your bank account." I felt something break inside me. Not my heart exactly, but something adjacent to it. Some fundamental belief in human goodness that I had carried my whole life. Over the next 3 days, Lucia's behavior was monitored continuously. She called a lawyer to discuss inheriting my house, went to the bank to inquire about accessing my accounts as executor, opened additional fraudulent accounts using my identity, applied for credit cards in my name, attempted to take out a $30,000 loan, called investment companies asking about liquidating my retirement accounts. All of it was caught on audio, on video, with timestamps and evidence. But the most damning moment came on the 3rd day. "She's at your house," Detective Sarah told me. "She has a key. She's inside." I couldn't watch this. I couldn't see it happen. I was hidden away in a police safe house, unable to stop my daughter from ransacking my life. But I listened to the audio. I heard Lucia's footsteps in the house where I had raised her. I heard her open my bedroom closet, the same closet where she had hidden as a child during hide and seek. I heard her open the safe where I kept my important documents. And then I heard her voice, talking to someone on the phone, and the words she spoke still echo in my mind. "Yeah, she's dead. The whole house is mine now. I'm in her closet right now looking at her documents. There's insurance policies, investment accounts, everything. We can liquidate it all by next month. I'm telling you, this is the break we needed. No more struggling, no more being poor. I'm going to be rich." Rich, that word, spoken by my daughter about my death, was what broke me completely. The police had enough evidence, more than enough. They had audio, video, financial records, communication records. They had Lucia on tape, celebrating my death and planning to steal everything I had built. "We're ready to make the arrest," Detective Sarah told me on the fourth day. "Do you want to be present?" I was silent for a long time. "Yes," I said finally. "I want to see her face when she realizes that I'm alive." The arrest happened at Lucia's apartment on a Friday morning. I rode with Detective Sarah in an unmarked police car. I sat in the back seat, and I watched as uniformed police officers approached Lucia's door. I watched as they knocked. I watched as Lucia opened the door, confused, and then shocked as they told her she was under arrest for identity theft, fraud, and conspiracy to commit elder fraud. She started to cry immediately. She asked what they were talking about. She asked if it was about her mother. She was confused, frightened, but not, I noticed, surprised. Not like someone innocent would be surprised. They brought her to the police station, they booked her, they gave her rights, and then, in an interrogation room with a one-way mirror, they brought me in to face her. Lucia was sitting at a metal table, still in the clothes she'd been wearing when they arrested her. Her hands were shaking, her makeup was smudged from tears. When she saw me walk through the door, alive, healthy, breathing, she went white. "Mom," she said, "What? You're alive," I finished for her. "Yes, I'm alive, and this entire time you've been committing fraud against me, celebrating my death, and planning to steal everything I own." Lucia started to deny it, but Detective Sarah played the recordings. She played the audio of Lucia on the phone bragging about my death. She played the video of Lucia going through my safe. She showed her the financial documents, the fraudulent accounts, the forged signatures. With each piece of evidence, Lucia's denial crumbled. By the end, she was sobbing, not from remorse, I realized, but from being caught. "Why, Lucia?" I asked. "Why did you do this?" She looked at me with wild eyes. "Because you had everything," she spat out. "You had this beautiful house, this perfect life, and Dad left you comfortable. You never had to worry about money. But me? I'm struggling. I'm 39 years old, and I'm struggling, and I watch you buy new plants, take vacations with your bridge club, live this perfect life, and I had nothing." "You had my love," I said quietly. "I had your pity," she snapped back. "That's all your love ever was. The poor Lucia who couldn't get her life together. The damaged Lucia whose father's death broke her. I was tired of being your project. I wanted to be free. I wanted to have what you had. And you thought stealing from me, committing fraud using my identity, celebrating my death, you thought that would give you freedom?" Lucia didn't answer. She just sat there crying. The legal process was long and painful. Lucia was charged with multiple counts of identity theft, fraud, conspiracy to commit elder fraud, and wire fraud. Because she had targeted an elderly person, the charges were enhanced. She was looking at 5 to 10 years in prison. My other children came to Los Angeles. Marcus was angry at Lucia for what she had done, but also sad. Jennifer was more ambivalent. She understood the crime, but also felt some sympathy for her sister's desperation. "What do you want to do, Mom?" Marcus asked me. "Do you want to pursue the case fully, or do you want to try to work something out?" I didn't know. Part of me wanted Lucia to go to prison, to face consequences for her betrayal. But another part of me, the part that had held her diapers, the part that had held her after her father died, couldn't bear the thought of my baby girl locked up. I met with my lawyer. We discussed options. Lucia could plead guilty to a reduced set of charges and potentially receive a lighter sentence. She could go to court and fight, but the evidence was overwhelming. She would likely lose and face longer prison time. I thought about it for 3 days. I prayed. I sat in my garden where I had once pushed her on a swing, and I tried to figure out what the right thing to do was. In the end, I made a decision that surprised many people. I agreed to a plea deal where Lucia would plead guilty and receive a sentence of 3 years in prison with 5 years probation. In exchange, I would not pursue civil damages against her. She would have to pay back the money she had stolen, $47,000 by the time the investigation was complete, but she wouldn't be personally liable from me. When I told Lucia about the deal, she was shocked. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "You could have had me sent away for 10 years. "Because you're still my daughter," I said simply. "And because 3 years in prison will teach you what you need to learn." Lucia started to apologize, but I stopped her. "Don't apologize to me," I said. "Apologize to yourself. Figure out why you felt so empty that you had to steal from the only person who loved you unconditionally. And then, when you get out, figure out how to fill that emptiness with something that isn't poison." After Lucia's arrest, I had to rebuild my identity and my life. The fraud had done significant damage to my credit. It took months to straighten out the false accounts, the fraudulent charges, the tainted credit reports. I had to personally contact every company she had defrauded and provide proof of the fraud. I had to install security systems in my house. I had to change all my passwords. I had to be more careful about who I trusted with my personal information. I had to process the trauma of my daughter's betrayal. A therapist named Dr. Morrison helped me work through it. We talked about how love can coexist with betrayal, how you can forgive someone without excusing what they did, how to rebuild trust in others and in yourself after it's been shattered. "The fact that you're here, doing this work, tells me you're going to be okay," Dr. Morrison told me during one of our sessions. "Many people in your situation would be bitter, would write off their children, would close their hearts. But you're choosing to stay open. That takes tremendous courage." Marcus helped me with the practical aspects of recovery. He set up more secure passwords, installed software to monitor my credit, and helped me establish fraud alerts on my accounts. Jennifer visited every month. We didn't talk about Lucia much, but we talked about life, about aging, about loss. The neighborhood, once I had spread word that I had been alive the whole time and that my apparent death had been to catch my daughter committing fraud, had mixed reactions. Some people were angry that I had fooled them. Some were sympathetic. Some thought I had done the right thing. Some thought I was cruel for faking my death. I didn't much care what they thought. What I cared about was my life. I took down the health alert system I had installed just in case. I made sure my will was updated, my affairs were in order, my wishes were clearly documented. I decided to sell the house eventually and move to something smaller, something that wasn't haunted by memories of betrayal. I started a garden club. I learned to paint. I took dance classes at the community center. I spent time with Moses's equivalent, a neighbor named Helen who became a true friend. We took trips together, we had adventures. I visited Lucia in prison twice. The first visit was stilted, awkward. Lucia looked different in orange, smaller somehow, diminished. She apologized profusely. I listened. I didn't accept or refuse the apology. I just listened. The second visit was different. Lucia had been in prison for 6 months. She had started therapy. She had gotten a job in the prison library. She was reading books about psychology, about trauma, about why she had made the choices she made. "I understand now that I was angry at you for not being Dad. I was angry that you survived him. I was angry that you seemed okay when I was falling apart. And so I tried to destroy the thing that represented your strength to me, your independence, your financial security, your life. I see that now. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm really sorry." I reached across the table and held my daughter's hand. For a long moment, we just sat in silence. "I forgive you," I said finally. "But forgiveness doesn't erase what you did. It doesn't make it okay. It just means I'm choosing not to carry the anger anymore. I'm choosing to see you as more than what you did to me." Lucia cried. I cried. We didn't resolve everything in that visit, but we began a new relationship, one based on something more complicated and perhaps more real than the one we had before. Lucia was released from prison after serving 2.5 years, with time off for good behavior. She moved into a halfway house. She found a job at a nonprofit that helps formerly incarcerated people reintegrate into society. She continued therapy. She worked on rebuilding her life. Marcus and Jennifer helped her. It wasn't easy. There was still pain, still history, but there was also love. I moved into a smaller house, a little cottage with a wonderful garden. I had a yard sale and sold most of my furniture and possessions. It felt liberating to get rid of things, to start fresh. Helen and I became best friends. We traveled together. We spent countless hours in each other's gardens. We laughed a lot. Detective Sarah and I stayed in touch. She had been deeply affected by my case and had started training police officers on how to handle elder fraud cases involving family members. My experience, as painful as it was, helped her help others. The money Lucia stole was eventually repaid, though it took her 3 years of working and directing her paychecks to my account. I donated every penny to a charity that helps victims of identity theft and fraud. As I sit now, writing this account of what happened, I am 76 years old. I am healthy, I am happy. I have my children, my grandchildren, my friends, and my garden. Do I regret faking my death to catch my daughter? No. Nor do I regret being merciful in her sentencing or working to rebuild our relationship. Both of those things were necessary. The first, to protect myself. The second, to honor the mother I chose to be. What I have learned is that betrayal doesn't have to define a relationship forever. Pain doesn't have to make you hard, and love doesn't have to make you naive. You can be strong and vulnerable. You can set boundaries and maintain compassion. You can forgive without excusing. And sometimes, the most radical thing you can do is to refuse to let the worst moment of your relationship with someone be the final word on that relationship. To refuse to let fear and hurt close your heart permanently. To choose again and again to see the human being underneath the bad choices they made. That is the real lesson of my story. Not that I was clever enough to catch my daughter, not that I was tough enough to not give up, but that I was brave enough to stay loving even after being betrayed. And that, I think, is worth writing down.